his inherited lands, his barns filled with harvest, and his large compound that never lacked food. Linus had two wives. The first wife was named Susu. The second wife was named Maui. From the outside, the family looked complete, comfortable, and blessed. But inside the compound, jealousy slept and woke with the first wife. Susu had been Linus's first wife. She arrived when he was still struggling, when the farmlands were small and the barns half empty. She bore him a daughter and believed deep in her heart that everything Linus would ever become belonged to her and her daughter alone. But life had a way of shifting things. When Linus married Maui, everything changed. Maui was gentle, soft-spoken, and hardworking. She never raised her voice. She never fought for attention. She didn't need to. Linus gravitated towards her naturally. He laughed more around her, rested better, found peace in her presence. And when Maui gave birth to a daughter named Twinkle, the balance in the house broke completely. Twinkle grew into a child that turned hers whenever she went. She wasn't just beautiful, she was graceful. The kind of girl who walked as if the ground respected her. She greeted elders properly, helped neighbors without being asked, and smiled with a warmth that made people forget their troubles. People whispered, "This child or that child is special. She carries favor. She behaves like a queen." Linus adores her openly. He praised her kindness. He corrected her with patience. He taught her about the lands, the farms, the harvest seasons, things he rarely shared before. And Susu watched. She watched how Linus' eyes softened whenever Twinkle entered the room. She watched how the villagers greeted Twinkle before greeting her own daughter. She watched how even her own child faded into the background beside Maui's daughter. Susu's daughter, Apple, was nothing like Twinkle. Apple loved food more than dignity. She ate without restraint. She spoke without thinking and cared little for manners. She could abandon chores if there was soup on the fire. If food is involved, Apple would trade loyalty, truth, even blood. The villagers laughed behind their hands. The girl's stomach leads her. She would sell a family member for meat. Susu heard it all, and each comment burned deeper. What angered Susu the most wasn't that Twinkle was loved. It was that Linus trusted her. He often said things like, "One day, Twinkle will understand how to manage those land. She has wisdom beyond her age. She reminds me of my late mother." Those words echoed like drums in Susu's head. Inheritance, that was the word that haunted her. Linus had lands that could feed generations, properties that could build dynasties. Susu knew that when the time came, Linus would not divide things blindly. He would give based on love, trust, not cry. She did not confront Linus. She did not fight openly because Susu had a secret. One she had carried since girlhood. One buried so deep that even the spirit feared to whisper. Susu was a witch. Not the kind that danced naked in the night or screamed in public. She was quiet, calculated, and patient, and when she decided to act, she chose a day when fate left Maui alone. That morning, Maui went to the far farmland early, carrying her hoe and basket. The sun was still gentle and the dew fresh on the soil. Twinkle stayed behind, helping Linus organize grain in the barn. Susu watched Maui leave. She then followed deep into the farmland where no one could scream. Maui worked peacefully, humming to herself, unaware that danger walked behind her. Susu stood at a distance, removed a small charm wrapped in red cloth, and began to whisper that did not belong to this world. The air thickened, the birds silent. Maui turned confused. Susu, she called. What are you doing here? Susu did not answer. She raised her head, and before Maui could scream, her body twisted, bones folded. Where Maui once stood, a god collapsed onto the soil, bleeding in terror. Susu stepped forward calmly, her face blank. You wanted peace, she whispered. Enjoy it. She dragged the goat deeper into the bush and tied it in a tree near the edge of the land where farmers kept animals temporarily. Then she wiped her hands, straightened her wrapper, and walked back home. That evening, Linus noticed Maui hadn't returned. By nightfall, panic filled the compound. Where is your mother? Linus asked Twinkle. Twinkle's had dropped. They searched, they called, they waited. But chased the goat out of the compound. The goat cried as it ran back to the bush. Twinkle sat there crying. She didn't understand what was happening. That moment under the orange tree was the beginning of Twinkle's agony. Months passed. At first, the compound was filled with panic. Linus searched everywhere for Maui. He went from farm to farm, from stream to stream, asking questions, offering small reward. Villagers shook their heads, some pitying him. Days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months. Slowly, the search stopped. Linus accepted the way men in the village often did. With silent grief and resignation, Maui was gone. Nobody, no trace, no explanation. Life had continued. But Maui never truly left. Every morning, a brown goat with calm eyes wandered into the compound as if it had always belonged there. It drank from any bowl of water it found. It ate cassava peels, yam skins, and whatever crops were left unattended. No one questioned it. Goats were common in the village. Stray goats came and went all the time. What made this one different was Twinkle. Wherever Twinkle went, the goat followed. When Twinkle sat under the orange tree in the compound to read, the goat sat beside her. When Twinkle washed plates near the kitchen, the goat stood close watching quietly. When Twinkle ate, the goat sat at a small distance. She fixed eyes on her. At first, villagers laughed. See this goat and child friendship. Maybe the goat likes her spirit. Even Twinkle didn't think much of it. She only knew that when the goat was near, she felt calmer, safer, as though someone was watching over her. Susu, however, did not ignore it. From the beginning, the goat irritated her. It ate from the cassava pile she stored behind the kitchen. It chewed young crops at the edge of the farm. It drank water meant for cooking. Each time she saw it, her chest tightened with anger because she knew exactly what the goat was. She watched how it followed Twinkle with unnatural devotion, how it sat beside her like a god, how Twinkle unconsciously leaned towards it when she was sad. One evening, Susu exploded. This useless goat has finished our food, she snapped. It is destroying crops. It is drinking water anyhow. Linus frowned. It's just a goat. A stray goat, Susu insisted. Tomorrow it will destroy more. We should kill it. Linus hesitated. Kill it? Yes, Susu said quickly. Sunday is coming. Let us slaughter it and make pepper soup. At least, it will be useful. Linus shrugged. A goat was a goat. He didn't know it followed Twinkle everywhere. He didn't know it slept near her near her window at night. He didn't know what Susu truly meant by useful, so he agreed. We will kill it tomorrow, he said. That night, Twinkle slept. Her dreams were heavy, thick with images she didn't understand. Then she saw the goat. It stood by the river bank, its eyes no longer calm but urgent. When it spoke, the voice wasn't the sound of a goat. It was her mother's voice. Twinkle, it said, listen to me. Twinkle froze. When they cook me, do not eat. Twinkle shook her head in the dream. What? Do not eat anything cooked with my meat, the voice repeated. Pack the bones quietly. Take them to the riverside. Bury them there. Why? Twinkle cried. The goat stepped closer. Promise me, it said softly. Promise me, my child. Twinkle woke up screaming. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Sweat soaked her wrapper. The room was dark, silent. Her heart pounded. It was just a dream, she whispered. But something inside her knew it wasn't. spicy scent leaf. Everything was added generously. Soon the smell of the pepper soup filled the compound. People gathered. Ah, this soup smells good. Susu, you tried. Susu beamed. She served everyone happily, laughing, moving around like a generous hostess. Then she turned to Twinkle. Come, she said sweetly, take your food. She handed Twinkle a plate. Food. The soup was steaming. The meat sat at the center. Twinkle stared at it. Her hands shook. The dream came rushing back. The smell was strong, spicy, inviting. The dream came back to her in pieces. The river, the goat's eyes, her mother's voice. Without thinking, Twinkle stood up. She walked quietly out of the house, her heart racing. No one noticed her leave. The compound was loud with laughter and chatter. Once she was far enough, she tipped the plate and poured the soup into the bush. She searched through the mess and picked the bones. Carefully, she wrapped them in the leaf and she ran. She ran all the way to the river, the same quiet spot where she fetched water every day. At the river bank, she dug with her bare hands. She placed the bones inside, covered them gently, and whispered through tears, I promise. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the spot before turning back. From that day, everything changed. Months passed and Susu's marks fell completely. With Maui gone, there was no one to protect Twinkle. At first, it was worse. So your mother really abandoned you? She would say casually. Maybe she never loved you enough to stay. You are here to serve Apple, Susu declared one morning. Anything she tells you, you do it. Do you? No questions. Apple smiled wickedly and Twinkled obeyed. Whenever Linus was around, Susu pretended to be kind. She laughed and praised Twinkle loudly, but the moment Linus left for the farm or traveled, Susu turned cruel to Twinkle. Twinkle did all the chores alone. Apple did nothing. Instead, Apple sat and ate. Bring water, clean my slippers, wash my clothes again. I don't like the smell. Susu watched and smiled. One chore never failed to exhaust Twinkle the most, fetching water every day under the scorching sun. Susu sent her to the stream, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. Go again, Susu would say coldly. The water you brought is not enough. One afternoon, the sun was merciless. Twinkle's throat was dry, her shoulders ached, her feet dragged as she carried the heavy clay pot on the stream. When she reached the river, she paused. Something changed at the spot where she buried the bones. A tree stood there, not a small one, a huge, strong tree. Its branches wide, its leaves thick and pink, offering shades as if it had always been there. Twinkle froze. She was sure that place had been empty before. She was the one who could see the tree, confused and tired. She walked closer and set the pot down. The shade felt cold against her skin. She sat beneath the tree and rested her back against its trunk. That was when she heard it. My daughter. Twinkle jumped up, heart racing. She looked around. No one. Do not be afraid, the voice said gently. It came from above her, from within the tree. Twinkle's knees weakened. The voice continued and familiar. All will be well. Twinkle trembled. Who are you? Our enemies will get what they deserve, the voice said. Patience, my child. Twinkle turned to run. Stay, the voice called. I will not harm you. I told her everything about Maui, about the spell, about Susu. Tears streamed down Twinkle's face as she listened. When you bury the bones with obedience, the voice. I was restored to this form. Twinkle fell to her knees, sobbing. You are not alone, the tree said. Whenever you need help, come to me. But tell no one, it warned. No one must know about this tree, or what I have told you. Twinkle nodded, wiping her tears. She fetched the water in silence and returned home quickly. She arrived late, too late. Susu was waiting. Where have you been? She snapped. Before Twinkle could answer, slap. Her cheek burned. Useless girl, Susu yelled. You think because your mother disappeared, you can start misbehaving? Twinkle lowered her head and said nothing. That evening, the village cries gong gong echoed through the air. Gong 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 gong. All maidens of the village, prepare yourselves. The great festival is coming. The prince is ready to choose a wife. Excitement spread like wildfire. Girls screamed, mothers whispered, fathers smiled proudly. Inside Susu's heart, something dark flickered in her eyes. She smiled slowly. An idea had struck her, and it was dangerous. On the day of the dance festival, the entire village buzzed with excitement. But inside Lino's compound, the excitement tasted different. Susu was already busy preparing her daughter Apple. Every morning, she made Apple stand in the middle of the room while she corrected her posture. Stand straight, Susu snapped. Queen, don't bend your back. She taught her how to walk slowly, how to lift her chin, how to smile without showing too much teeth. She practiced greeting with her. When the prince looks at you, don't rush your words, Susu said. Speak softly. Let him lean into hear you. Apple laughed every morning. Meanwhile, Twinkle was in the kitchen. Her hands were red from pounding pepper. Sweat rolled down her face as she worked, the sound of the mortar echoing through the compound. Each time she paused to rest, Susu's voice cut through the air. And why are you slowing down? Are you lazy like your mother? Twinkle said nothing. She never did. One afternoon, while Apple was sitting comfortably, Susu leaned close to her daughter and whispered, when you become the princess's wife, this girl will follow you everywhere. Apple's eye widened. She will wake before dawn to fetch water, Susu continued. She will wash your clothes, cook your food, carry your things. Apple smiled slowly. Will she kneel when I talk to her? She asked. Susu smiled back. She will kneel even before you speak to her. Apple clapped her hands excitedly. Twinkle heard everything. She kept pounding. That night, Apple sat alone in her room, staring at the ceiling, imagining herself in royal clothes. She pictured servant bowing, drums beating her name, and Twinkle running behind her breathlessly. She giggled to herself. Twinkle, on the other hand, sat outside under the orange tree, staring into the dark. She knew she wouldn't dance. She didn't even know how to, but deep inside, she still felt a small spark of happiness. She wanted to watch, just watch, to see the beautiful maidens dance in colorful wrappers, hear the drums feel like a part of the village, even if only one from afar. She didn't know her stepmother had other plans. The morning of the festival arrived. Linus had traveled for a business trip. Drums echoed from the palace. Women tied their wrappers. Maidens laughed and hurried past the compound, their anklets jiggling. Susu called Twinkle. Twinkle rushed in, her heart pounding. Susu pointed to a large bowl of flour. Inside it was ash, thick grey ash. Then Susu poured a sack of rice into the grains until the grains disappeared into the ashes. Twinkle froze. Separate them, Susu said calmly. until every single grain is separated. She said, "You will not step near the palace." Apple burst into laughter. Twinkle fell to her knees. "Please," she begged. "Please, let me go and watch. I won't dance, I promise." Susu laughed coldly. "You watch royalty. Finish your work." She turned to Apple. "Come, the prince won't wait." Mother and daughter walked away laughing. Their laughter followed Twinkle like a curse. Twinkle stared at the bowl. Ashes, rice. Her hands shook as she picked the first grain. Ash coated her finger. Tears dropped into the bowl. The drums grew louder. The festival had begun. Twinkle sobbed quietly, surrounded by ashes, unaware that this cruel tax was about to awaken something that Susu never planned for. Twinkle's fingers trembled as she picked grain after grain from the ashes. Her tears fell freely now. Then she remembered the tree. Her heart skipped. "Whenever you need help, come to me." She didn't think twice. Twinkle lifted the heavy bowl and ran. The village was strangely quiet. Every compound empty. Every road deserted. Everyone had gone to the palace. Her feet burned as she ran past huts and farms, her breath coming in sharp gasps. When she reached the river bank, she stumbled and fell at the foot of the tree. She dropped the bowl and broke down. "Please help me. Do not cry, my daughter," the tree said gently. "They will not let me go," she cried. "They gave me ashes instead of freedom." The tree's voice was so calm. "You were never meant to watch. You were meant to dance." Twinkle shook her head in disbelief. "What? Dance?" she whispered. "I don't even know how to dance." "You will dance," the tree replied. "And when you do, no one will recognize you." Twinkle's tears slowed. "They will see a queen," the tree continued. "Not a serpent, not a forgotten child, an entirely different person." Before Twinkle could speak again, the ground trembled softly. The bowl vanished. The rice and ash appeared back in the compound, perfectly separated. A gentle light wrapped around her body like morning sun. Her clothes faded away. In their place appeared an elegant dress, soft, flowing and radiant. Diamonds shimmered at her neck, catching the light. A silver crown rested gently on her head, and her feet were covered in shining diamonds. Twinkle stared at herself in disbelief. She was beautiful, not the kind of beauty people argued over, but the kind that silenced the room. "You must listen carefully," the tree said. "Once the first dance ends, you must leave the palace immediately." Twinkle nodded slowly. "Before you leave," the tree added, "place your crown on the sunflower in the palace garden." Twinkle touched the ground. "Why?" she asked. "The time will come," the tree replied, "but you must not stay longer than you are told." The leaves parted. A carriage appeared, golden, glowing, pulled by white horses that stamped the ground impatiently. Twinkle stepped inside, her heart pounding. As the carriage rolled towards the palace, the drums grew louder. The palace gate stood wide open. Inside, maidens were already dancing. Apple stood among them, dressed in bright fabric, smiling confidently as Susu watched from the crowd with pride. Then the music shifted. The crowd narrowed her eyes. The drums changed rhythm. A deeper beat rolled through the palace courtyard, slow and commanding. As Twinkle stepped forward, every eye followed her movement. The way her feet touched the ground, the way her arms floated through the air as if guided by something unseen. She didn't rush, she didn't hesitate. She moved like someone who had always belonged there. Then the prince stood up. A low murmur swept through the crowd. He descended the steps of his throne and walked straight to her. Caps echoed. Twinkle's heart raced, but her face remained calm. When the prince reached her, she stretched out his hands. She placed hers in his without a word, and they began to dance. The courtyard disappeared. There was no crowd, no music, no watching eyes, just the two of them. The villagers whispered among themselves, "Who is she? I have never seen her before. Which village did she come from? Look at the way the prince is looking at her." At the edge of the courtyard, Susu's smile vanished. Her finger curled tightly around her wrapper. As anger boiled inside her chest, she turned sharply and signaled to Apple with her eyes. "Dance harder." Apple nodded, threw herself into the rhythm, spinning, jumping, and smiling widely. She danced with all the strength in her body, desperate to be noticed. But the prince did not look at her. He did not look at any of the other maidens. His eyes never left the mysterious maiden dancing in front of him. Even the other girls, who were meant to be her rival, forgot themselves. They stopped dancing. They stopped watching each other. They stopped feeling envy. They watched in awe. The stage was no longer a festival ground. It belonged to Twinkle and the prince. They moved in perfect harmony. Every step matched, every turn answered another. It was as if they had practiced together for years. The prince smiled at her. She smiled back. Nothing more, no words. Just charm, just grace, just eyes that spoke without sound. Then, as suddenly as it began, the drums slowed. The first dance was over. Twinkle felt it immediately. Her heart skipped. She remembered the warning. She stepped back before the prince could speak. She could even take another step towards her. Before the prince could speak, before he could even take another step towards her, she bowed slightly, just enough to be respected, and turned away. She walked swiftly out of the courtyard, her diamond shoes barely touching the ground. The prince watched, stunned. Twinkle ran into the garden, her breath coming fast now. Her eyes scanned the flowers desperately, and she saw it, a sunflower, bright, tall, standing alone. She approached it slowly. Her finger trembled as she reached for the ground. For a moment, she hesitated, feeling its weight, its beauty. Then she remembered the tree's voice. She removed it carefully and placed it at the center of the sunflower. The crown shimmered once, then went still. Twinkle turned and ran at the edge of the palace ground. The carriage waited. She climbed in just as the horses began to move. The palace faded behind her. The music, the light, the whispers, the carriage rolled into the bush, deeper and deeper until suddenly it stopped. Twinkle blinked. Before she could speak, the carriage dissolved into a thin air. The horses vanished. The gown faded. The diamond necklace disappeared. Her shoes crumbled like dust. Twinkle stood alone on the dusty path, wearing her old clothes again, barefoot, breathing hard. She didn't panic. She ran. By the time she reached the compound, Susu and Apple were already returning from the palace, laughing loudly, talking over each other. Twinkle rushed inside and dropped the floor, quickly grabbing the bowl. She pretended to separate the rice from the ashes lashes, her head bent low, her hands moving slowly. Susu burst in moments later. She froze. The bowl, the rice, perfectly separated, not a grain of ash inside. Susu's mouth opened, then closed. Apple stared. How? How did you do it? Susu demanded. Twinkle did not answer. She kept her head down quietly, picking invisible grains. Susu hissed under her breath, then walked away. But outside the palace walls, the prince stood restless, his heart troubled by a maiden who danced like destiny and vanished like a secret. And somewhere in the garden, a sunflower held a crown that would soon speak louder than words. That evening, Apple could hardly contain herself. She paced the compound excitedly, her feet barely touching the ground as she replayed the event of the festival in her head. The drum, the crowd, the prince, and most of all, the mysterious maiden who had stolen the entire palace's breath. She finally found Twinkle sitting on the wooden stool, picking beans. Apple sat beside her and began talking excitedly. She told her everything that had happened at the palace about the mysterious maiden, the cheering crowd, the drums, and the way the prince danced. She laughed as she spoke. I danced so well, Apple said proudly. The prince couldn't take his eyes off me. Everyone saw it. She shook her head mockingly. It's just a pity you didn't get to witness any of it. Twinkle kept her head down quietly, selecting the beans she had been ordered to pick. Apple continued, enjoying every word. You should pray harder for me, she added, because that's the only way you will ever step into the palace when I become the queen. She smiled cruelly. You will be my personal maid. You'll follow me everywhere. Twinkle said nothing. She didn't argue. She didn't look up. She only continued selecting beans one by one, her silence heavier than any reply. That night, far away from the compound, the prince could not sleep. He wandered into the palace garden, the quiet place where he always went to think, the same spot he sat every evening to unwind, the same sunflower that always stood taller than the rest. As he approached, something caught his eyes, resting carefully on the sunflower's head. His breath caught. He picked it up slowly. This, he whispered, turning it into his hand. This is hers, the same crown that had rested on her mysterious maiden's head as she danced, the same crown that glimmered under the palace light. That was here. She was here, he said softly. He called his guard at once. Take this crown, the prince commanded. Keep it safely in my chamber. Tomorrow I will return it to her myself. The guard bowed. Yes, your highness. But the next day came, and the mysterious maiden did not. The drums played, the maidens danced, the palace filled again. She was nowhere. The prince searched with his eyes. He waited, he stood. He asked nothing. By midday, his patience ran out. He stood before the crowd and raised his hand. Enough, he said firmly. The woman this crown belongs to is not here. The courtyard fell silent. I will not wait any longer, the prince continued. Tomorrow I will go into the village myself. I will find the maiden whose head fits the crown. Susu's heart pounded. A crown-fitting test. A village search. Apple, she called sharply. Yes, Mama. Susu's eyes gleamed dangerously. She must make sure the crown fits your head. When they got home, she stood and moved towards a hidden calabash at the corner of the room. Inside it was a dark liquid, thick, bubbling faintly. A concoction. This, Susu said slowly, will make you irresistible. Apple's eye lit up. Mama, you are the best. Susu smiled, but even she was not prepared for what the concoction would do. That night, Apple drank it, and by morning, when Apple woke up, she stretched lazily, already slimming to herself. That was the day the prince would come searching, the day she would finally be chosen. She jumped out of the bed, rushed into the mirror, humming proudly, but the moment her eyes met her reflection, she screamed. A loud, thunderous scream tore through the compound. Her eyes were bulging unnaturally, red and swollen. Her nose had stretched and turned an angry shade of crimson. Her neck, long, stiff, looked nothing like it did the night before. Her face had lost all softness, replaced with something frightening, something wrong. Apple staggered back, clutching her chest. No, 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 this is not me, she cried. She ran into the mirror again, hoping it was a trick of the light, but it wasn't. Her body began to move strangely. Her hands shook, her legs bent awkwardly. She laughed suddenly, then cried, then laughed again, like someone whose mind has snapped in half. Her scream summoned Susu at once. Susu rushed into the room. What is it? What is it? She froze. The sight before her drained the color from the face. Apple, she whispered. Apple turned slowly, her bulging eyes rolling. Look at me, she screamed. Look at what you did to me. Susu rushed forward, grabbing her daughter's face, turning it left and right in panic. No, no, this cannot be, Susu muttered. She ran for her charms, her cards, her powders. She chanted, she spat incantations, she burned leaves and muttered words under her breath. Nothing worked. Apple only grew worse. She began pacing the room, muttering to herself, scratching her skin, laughing loudly for no reason. Susu's hand trembled. For the first time in years, fear crept into her heart. Outside, the village drums began to sound. Boom, 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 boom. The prince is coming, voices shouted. The prince is in the village. Susu's heart sank. She had waited for this day, but not like this. Soon the royal procession arrived, guards, elders, and the prince himself moving from house to house, testing the crown on every maiden. Wherever they went, the crown refused to fit. It's not hers. Move on. No, not this one. At last, they reached Linus's compound. Susu's stomach twisted. Villagers gathered, whispering excitedly. Linus has two daughters. Yes, one very beautiful. One. Susu stepped forward quickly, forcing a smile. My lord, she said, bowing please. My daughter is not feeling well today. The prince raised an eyebrow. Bring her out. Susu hesitated. The prince raised an eyebrow. Bring her out. Susu hesitated. When Apple finally stumbled out, supported by Susu, the compound fell silent. Then laughter erupted. Some villagers covered their mouth, others gasped. Children pointed openly. What happened to her? Is this sickness or madness? Apple suddenly screamed again, flailing her arms, her voice hoarse and wild. Susu wanted the ground to open and swallow her. The prince stepped back slightly. This is not the one, he said calmly. Susu's face burned with shame. You should see the other one, the village said. She laughed loudly. My lord, the other girl is nothing, just a servant, poor dirty, not even fit to stand before royalty. The villagers murmured. Bring her, the prince said. Susu's laughter grew. This one, she scoffed. You want to try the crown on her? Twinkle was called. She stepped out quietly, her head bowed, her clothes plain, her feet who slept on the floor, the same girl Susu had mocked and beaten. Susu folded her arms confidently. "This will be amusing," she muttered. There was something about her, something calm, something graceful. When the guard lifted the crown and gently placed it on her head, the crown fit perfectly, not too tight, not too loose, as though it had been waiting for her. The prince stepped closer, his eyes locked at her face. "It's you," he whispered. "You are the one." The villagers erupted. "That's the mystery dancer. That's the maiden from the festival." The crown recognized her. The prince turned to Twinkle and smiled. "I have searched everywhere for you," he said, "and now I have found you." Twinkle lifted her eyes slowly, and for the first time since her mother vanished, hope bloomed. But far away beneath the river tree, the wind rustled softly, as if something or someone was watching and smiling. Then Twinkle stepped forward, her voice at first, but she gathered courage and spoke loudly so everyone could hear. She told the villagers how Maui had been turned into a goat, how she had suffered in silence, and how Susu's jealousy had destroyed her life. The crowd gasped. The prince turned sharply to Susu and demanded the truth. Cornered and trembling, Susu was forced to confess. She admitted everything she had done to Maui and Twinkle. She confessed that the goat slaughtered and shed in the village had been Maui herself. Immediately panic broke. People who had eaten the meat began vomiting violently, crying out in fear. Many swore on the spot that they would never again eat in anyone's house. Susu sobbed harder and confessed one last thing, that the spell meant to beautify her daughter had backfired. Meant to beautify her daughter had backfired, turning Apple into what she had become. As her confession ended, the spell broke before everyone's eye. Susu screamed and transformed into a black goat. Some villagers ran home, unable to watch the abomination. An elder stepped forward and spoke with final authority. "Let her roam the village and the bushes. This shall be the punishment for her wicked and inhuman heart." The prince then took Twinkle by the hand and led her away. He brought her into the palace. Linus returned days from the business trip. When he heard what had happened, he screamed. He tore his clothes. He felt the ground shaking. He remembered the day the goat was slaughtered. He remembered eating the meat, enjoying it. He never recovered. From that day on, Linus wandered the compound like a shadow of himself, silent, broken, hunted. He died weeks later, a man crushed by truth. Twinkle married the prince in a grand ceremony. The entire village gathered. Drums roared, women danced, the land celebrated. Susu and Apple watched from afar, silent, broken, forgotten. The next morning, Twinkle returned to the river. She knelt before the great tree. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered, tears. The tree's voice came softly. "My daughter, my time is done." The leaves rustled gently. "You have risen above pain. You have forgiven. You have survived. Live well." Then the tree vanished. Twinkle cried, but she understood. Twinkle inherited all of Linus's land, all of his farm, and all of his wealth. She became a queen and the richest woman in the village. As for Susu and Apple, they roamed the bushes. Children chased them with stones. Elders whispered warning. Legends say they still wander to this day, eating grass, crying at night. And Linus, they say his spirit never rested because some sins are too heavy for a man to survive. And so the story ends with truth, with justice, rid the ground that never belonged to the wicked Hans. By the way, this